Okay, today we're going to talk about writing linear equations from situations and graphs. Let's talk about the y-intercept first. We talked about this before, but I want to make sure that you know that when you're looking at the y-intercept, it is always what you start with. So if you're making an initial deposit of, say, $500 and you're going to add $100 a month into that bank account, your original, what you started with, was the original $500. So the y-intercept is always what you start with. When we're looking at our slope, or m, we need to remember that that is our rate of change. And one of the words that they like to use with slope that you will see a lot is the word per. So when it says $100 per week, things like that, it's not always the case, but most of the time when you see the word per, you are looking at your slope. So let's look at this first example. These aren't too hard. If I look at this, it says a concession stand has 500 pom-poms. So I'm going to highlight the 500 pom-poms before a game. The fans bought them at a rate of 25 cents per minute. Okay, 25 per minute, not 25 cents, sorry. How long will it take for the supplies to be gone? Now, at this time, we are not learning how to solve. We start that next week. So I'm not really going to worry about this sentence right here. I'm just going to worry about getting it written into a form where we can solve it eventually down the line. So if I'm looking for my B says, where do I stop? Where do I start? How many pom-poms did I have before the game? And if I look up here, it says that I started with 500 pom-poms. So I'm going to write that down. 500 would be my B. Now, the M is a little bit more tricky this time because it says they're selling at 25 per minute, but they're selling them. So you have to be careful and watch for that because they're not adding to the pom-poms. They're selling the pom-poms, which means that we're selling them at 25 per minute. So we're going to take off. So it's a negative 25 because we're losing 25 pom-poms a minute. Okay. The reason that it's a negative is because we're selling. We're not buying them or adding to it. We're selling. And one of the things that I've noticed about this sentence that I have highlighted, it is giving us the per minute. So we know we're selling them by the minute. Okay? So when I go to write that in y equals mx plus b, all I'm going to do is fill in my m with negative 25. I'm going to write an x, and then I'm going to say plus 500 because that's where I began. See, it's not, these are very, very simple if you just pay attention to the wording. Okay? The next one says a race begins at a rate of 1.5 meters per second. What distance d is covered after t seconds? So again, I said we're not worried about solving right now. What we're worried about is setting it up as an equation y equals mx plus b. Now remember earlier I said that the word per normally goes with our slope. And in this case, that rings true. So 1.5 meters per second is what we're running. 1.5. Now the y-intercept is tricky because on this one, they don't give you any other numbers. So I want you to think about running a race. We're starting at the starting line. We haven't gone anywhere. So if we're looking at meters per second, we haven't started, so we're at 0 meters. So our y-intercept is actually 0 because we are at the starting line. It doesn't always work out that way, but this time it did. Okay, so my equation would look like y equals 1.5x. Now, if you were to write 1.5x plus 0, I'm not going to count that wrong because it's the same thing. But because it's plus 0, we don't have to add that 0 on. Okay, let's look at another one. Remember, you can go back and you can slow this video down or you can speed it up to wherever you need so that you can get all this in if it's moving a little bit fast. Okay, The next one says 50 azalea plants arrive at a florist shop on the first of the week. So I'm gonna highlight 50 azalea plants. After that, they arrive at an average of 75 plants per day. Now remember, I'm not really concerned about solving, so I'm just going to mark this sentence out. Okay. So if we're looking at our y-intercepts, which is always what I like to look for first, because it's what I start out with. On the first day, we got 50 azalea plants. Okay? So we are starting out with 50. And then they are going to arrive at an average rate of 75 per day, which means we are going to add to those azalea plants, and we're going to have 75 per day. There's my word per again. Now all I have to do is write my sentence. Y equals 75x plus 50. Okay, that is how we write equations from situations and graphs. Tomorrow we'll work on some graphs. If you have any questions about this, please come see me during zero period.